A local author has written a new book about Arizona connections to the famed Tuskegee Airmen. The book is titled Black Wings Over Arizona and is written by a Tuskegee-trained retired Air Force pilot. And here now is Colonel Richard Dick Tolliver, author of Black Wings Over Arizona. It's good to see you again. It's been a while.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Time flies when you're having fun.
There you go. First of all, I got to tell you, the title, Black Wings Over Arizona, that's a cool title.
Yes, I thought about it for a while, and I wanted to reflect the character of the people, the image of the people, the beautiful backdrop of Arizona, which I love so dearly and which they love so dearly. And so what we did was find a way to merge in the topography of Arizona and what they did with the aircraft and their lives themselves.
And this basically is that. It's a compilation of stories of Tuskegee Airmen with Arizona connections. And the Archer Ragsdale, Arizona chapter. Explain what that is.
The Archer Ragsdale, Arizona chapter was the name that we gave to the establishment of the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated chapter here in Arizona 18 years ago. And the double name, Archer Ragsdale, is the name of the first black Chief Master Sergeant assigned to Arizona, Fred Archer. And then we wanted, he's an NCO, and then we wanted the pilots tied to that. Lincoln Ragsdale Sr. was the first, one of the first Tuskegee Airmen sent to Arizona in 1945, along with 10 other guys. So we combined both the enlisted and the officer pilot to get the name Archer Ragsdale.
There you go. And Lincoln Ragsdale is a very familiar name to those of us who've lived in Arizona a while. Okay, these young men, and we'll get to the women in a second, but the young men that were profiled in here, who are these guys? Who were these guys?
These were representatives of the quality of the Tuskegee Airmen experience that started back prior to World War II, when the winds of war were raging across Europe. President Roosevelt realized we were not prepared. We didn't have enough pilots. And at that time, no law allowed blacks to join the military as pilots, as officers, etc. So a bill was passed in 1939 that created a civilian pilot training program, and it allowed historical black colleges and universities to participate. Tuskegee Institute at that time had hired a man to come down and began to build an airfield and set up a training program at Tuskegee. So they got the nod to be selected first in the program in 1941.
Wow.
And that's how the Tuskegee Airmen legacy began.
And you looked at their military careers here, early life, military service, post-military service. You looked at retirement years. That sounds like a lot of research.
Well, it was, and we were fortunate enough in our chapter to have about 10 children or grandchildren of the original Tuskegee Airmen. We call them the Heritage Chapter members.
Yeah.
And so we collected those kids and began to ask them for documentation, photographs, things that they had or things that they remembered. We led that effort for about 2.5 years collecting the data. And once we got the data together, we began to look at how to lay out the story, how they began, what led them to join the Tuskegee Airmen experience, how they wanted to become pilots, what they did during that time. Out of the 15,000 Tuskegee Airmen of World War II, 450 of them went overseas to fly, and they came back to the States, and they were back into the way they left it. So they had what they call fighting two wars.
Yeah.
The one at home and the one overseas.
Indeed.
And so that's how we got it.
At the forefront in many ways of civil rights. They're educators, entrepreneurs, civil rights leaders, these sorts of things. And we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but not too much. I want you to talk about, you've chronicled African-American women and these women that were sent to Europe in World War II. Talk to us about that.
Well, we were very fortunate to have one of the 855 black women who were collected to go over to England to unscramble the mail that had been stacked up in old dilapidated hangars and rodent-infested places. The morale was going badly. The generals were looking for ways to improve the morale. Somebody says, get these women over there and see if they can fix this problem. And to fix the problem, they did. 855 of them were sent to England. They arrived in very rigid conditions, weather, facilities to live in. They had to create those things for themselves. And they created a system uniquely designed to try and attract the soldiers, the women, and others by serial numbers and so on. And they were given a 6-month period to unscramble the mail. They did it in 3 months, created it, did such a fine job. They sent the next to France. By the time the war ended, they had sorted through and dispensed and distributed millions of pieces of mail packages and so on.
That's just a great story. Yeah. We got about a minute left here. What inspired you to write this book and to, again, chronicle these folks?
Well, I was blessed to be touched by the Tuskegee Airmen when I was a youngster, 18 years old, and I wanted to go to Tuskegee. I arrived there. I wanted to be a pilot after growing up in World War II in California. But the war was over. My family was back in the South. My older brother went to Tuskegee, found a way to work and go to school. I followed suit. That's when I met my first black pilot in my life. 1 month later, I was getting my first flight. And then I was trained by them, motivated by them, encouraged by them. They became part of my life.
Well, you became a part of your life, and it just helps us to understand and appreciate the history. Good to have you. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
You bet. Take care.